And welcome back to Big Board Sports. NFL training camps in full swing. Preseason games are underway. The Bills lost to the Colts 19-18 in the preseason opener. Mike Rodak, ESPN Buffalo Bills reporter, joins us here on Big Board Sports to talk about the Bills. And Mike, good morning. Roger Weiland in Albany. How you doing this morning?
Doing pretty well. How are you guys?
We're good, Mike. We're good. And, listen, these preseason games in terms of who wins and who loses, certainly not a huge deal, and certainly not in the first one. The third one, when the starters are in there, usually put a little bit more stock into it. But it's the injuries, Mike, and already here we go. I mean, Shaq Lawson and Reggie Ragland, top two draft picks for the Buffalo Bills, and a big part of Rex Ryan defensively are injured here. I mean, that's got to be a headline right now going on with that team.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you look at what the Bills needed to do defensively to turn around from, their pretty poor performance last season. Let's face it, they're 19th in the league. Their sack numbers were way down. Nobody was really afraid of Rex Ryan's defense last season, so that's why they went out in the draft, and they spent their first three draft picks, and they traded up in the second round to get Reggie Ragland. So it's a very defensive-oriented draft. It was a draft where they were bringing in three players who were going to start right away. GM Doug Whaley didn't even hesitate in saying that right after the draft, and now you don't have Shaq Lawson as the week one starter. Obviously, that's not new. He's been out since May, but you combine that with the Ragland injury now that he tore his ACL last week, and it's not looking as promising from a draft standpoint as it once was. Although I will say that the third round pick, Adolphus Washington, looked very good in that preseason opener Saturday night against the Colts. So it might be the silver lining there, but you're not going to get Shaq Lawson back until probably Halloween, somewhere around there, and you're not going to get Reggie Ragland back until next season. And you look again at another injury. Well, Shaq Lawson's replacement was going to be Manny Lawson, the veteran who started last season. He tore his pectoral muscle right before the start of training camp, so he's out probably until the start of the regular season. And his replacement, Ike Annapolis, the former Jet, he tore his ACL in Saturday's preseason game. He's done for the season. So it's just one injury after another at outside linebacker for the Bills.
Yeah, you just don't make these stories up. I mean, it's unreal that this is the way it's starting right now for Rex Ryan, who needs to get something done this year in a big way. And certainly he's a defensive guy, and a very disappointing season last year from a defensive standpoint. What do you make of the 19-18 preseason opener loss to the Indy Colts? Ran the ball well, limited the Colts to 30 yards rushing despite the loss. What was the feeling? What were some positives going on in the locker room after the game was over?
Yeah, it was definitely, I think, the performance of that first-team defense, at least in my eyes, that really stood out. Because, as we just mentioned, it was a problem area last year. They came into this game, they played three drives, and granted, it wasn't against Andrew Luck. The Colts held him out. The Colts held Frank Gore out, but they shut down Scott Tolzien. I think he had 17 net yards, the Colts offense did, through those three drives where the Bills' first-team defense was on the field, and that was without Kyle Williams and Stephon Gilmore, who were basically resting for the game. So it was a very good performance on their part, especially the run defense. The battles at the line of scrimmage were definitely won by the Bills in that game. And you're not talking about a great Colts offensive line by any means, and we'll have to see how things go the rest of the preseason. But that was probably the most encouraging aspect. And I think if you look from more of a late game angle, Cardale Jones's game, was close to being a game-tying touchdown drive at the end, would have been if it was a regular game. That was pretty encouraging as well. The Bills went for two. They didn't convert the two-point conversion that would have won the game, but he drove 83 yards, I believe, in 1 minute without any timeouts. And for a rookie quarterback, that's a pretty good way to go.
Mike Brady Farkas here. We've heard a lot about how Rex continues to want to run the ball and push that on offense. So we've heard about LaShawn McCoy and Carlos Williams eventually in the fold, and then Reggie Bush. A guy who's not getting any publicity is Mike Gillislee, a guy who ran the ball well at the end of the year last year. Does he have a place on this roster this season?
He definitely does, in my opinion. This is a guy who runs very hard, who the coaches like. They called him Touchdown Mike last season because whenever he touched the ball, it seemed like he was scoring touchdowns. He had a 50-yarder and a 60-yarder last year. So I think he really fills that number 3 role for them, which is what he was last season, and that assumes that Reggie Bush slides into that number 2 role. And, that's still isn't, locked down 100% guaranteed. So I would definitely put Gillislee a notch above, the rest of the guys they have in camp, whether it's Jonathan Williams, the rookie, or James Wilder or Boom Herron. I think Gillislee definitely has the inside track there. And, the Carlos Williams situation is the wild card. The Bills actually just activated him off the NFI list this morning. So he's going to practice on Monday here. But, he's going to be suspended the first 4 games of the season. That, doesn't require a roster spot. But once he comes back in October, the Bills are going to have to make a decision on which running backs are going to carry. Even then, I think Gillislee stands a pretty good chance of sticking around.
Talking NFL football, talking Buffalo Bills, and the well-regarded Mike Rodak, ESPN Buffalo Bills reporter, with us here on Big Board Sports 104.5, The Team, ESPN Radio. On this Monday morning, we'll be at Giants camp on Wednesday, and they've got their own injury problems. But let's get back to Buffalo here, Mike, and the Tyrod Taylor story. 6-year, $92 million extension. Is that a little premature here?
On the surface, I think a lot of people might have seen those numbers and reacted as such, but the structure of the deal, which, hasn't been fully released yet, but the structure of the deal really should allow the Bills a chance to get out of this at multiple points, in fact. So it's really just a 1-year, $9 million deal, $9.5 million deal, and then the Bills have the option to continue after that, which would add about, I believe, $27 million guaranteed if they execute the option, through the first 2 years. So, it's a little bit of a gamble on the Bills' part. They are giving him a little bit more money up front than they needed to. I mean, they didn't have to give him a contract right now. He's under contract for $3 million before this, but it's probably a better way for them to go than franchising him next year, next off season. So it's a good deal for the Bills. I'm not sure it's a great deal for Tyrod Taylor. I think it potentially locks him down to the Bills at less than market rate, and it also doesn't give him a ton of financial security up front. So I actually like the deal from a Bills perspective because it is pretty flexible, and it's not a ton of money when you see some of the money that's been thrown around at Chase Daniel and Brock Osweiler and some of the other quarterbacks out there.
And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but last time the Buffalo Bills made a huge splash with the quarterback and a big extension was Ryan Fitzpatrick right after he had that great first half of the year, and then we're going to give him a lot of money and a big contract here, and we know what happened after they made Fitzpatrick a rich man.
Yeah, exactly. That was what happened in 2011. Had that hot start. I believe they're 3-0 and then 4-1. They beat the Patriots at home, and there's a lot of excitement over that, and it did kind of blow up in their face, and they paid for it, for the next couple of years. And in this case, I think the Bills have a lot more flexibility, or won't have the same long-term cap effects as the Fitzpatrick deal had. So I do like this deal better than the Fitz deal for them.
Mike, it came out this weekend. We're going to hear more about it this week that New Era, the cap company, has bought stadium rights to Ralph Wilson Stadium. Does that mean that this year the Bills are no longer going to be playing in the Ralph? Is it going to turn that quickly that's going to be New Era Cap Stadium?
Yeah, from everything I understand, there's going to be a press conference this week to announce the name change, and so it will be pretty immediate. This is essentially something that it's been in the works for a while. I mean, the Pagulas didn't want to do it right away. Obviously there's, sensitivity issues for, right after Ralph Wilson passes in 2014, and you don't want to just change the name of the stadium right away, but you also want to be with the times, and the times are, you need a corporate sponsor. Obviously the Bills had one for quite a while, when it was Rich Stadium, and they're in fact the first team to have a corporate sponsor, but once that new stadium lease came in 1998, the state changed it to Ralph Wilson Stadium, and it's stuck since then. And he actually gave the team permission to change it before his passing. So it's gonna change very quickly. I don't know the exact name of the stadium, but reports out there that it's probably not going to include Ralph Wilson's name anymore. It's not going to be New Era Field at Ralph Wilson Stadium. It's probably just going to be hypothetically New Era Stadium or New Era Field.
How is the community reacting to that? Because I think the Bills fans, at least that I have known, have taken pride in the fact of having a non-corporate stadium name and when it went back to Ralph Wilson. But New Era is a Buffalo-based company, so is there some pride in that as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's obviously one of the bigger companies in Buffalo, and it's the cap brand of the NFL. So that's something I think people recognize, and it's also, I think fans get the business aspect of it too. Most teams have corporate sponsors, and any money that the Bills make, is probably going to go back to them somehow. So if it's a better experience, better stadium experience for them, then I think fans will be all right with it down the road.
Mike, what's your thoughts on preseason game number 2? Giants coming your way on Saturday, 4:00 game. You can watch it locally on my 4 here. These starters in the first week went just a couple of series. What do you think Buffalo will do with their starters this week against the Giants?
Yeah, I think it's going to be closer to a half, if not a full half. I don't know if Tyrod Taylor will be out there for that full first half, but I would expect most of the offensive starters to be. The biggest question for me would be whether Sammy Watkins plays, because he, was held out of that first game even though he was physically ready. Does it make sense for the Bills to put him on the field? I mean, we look at the Rob Gronkowski situation the last couple of years. I don't think he's played in a preseason game since 2012, and that's, he hasn't been injured those years. It's just been, the team has held him out for precautionary reasons. So I think the Bills would be smart to do that. If they don't play Watkins, maybe they play him for one drive or something like that. But it's just how they handle that situation that is going to interest me going to this game on Saturday.
All right. Well, I'm sure all the Buffalo fans think this is a playoff team, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope every year, right? It's been that way for 16 years. So, hey, new era, so to speak.
Same old language in the preseason. We'll see how it plays out. Mike, always a pleasure. We'll be back in touch. You have a big Buffalo Bills fan base right here in the Capital Region.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.